it may surprise you that a urologist is at the top of the nation of experts speaking about this. And my story makes sense. You know, like Steve Jobs said, when you look backwards, it all makes sense, right? So 7 years into practice here, I had a patient change my life by coming in with a sexual function issue. I didn't know how to help. And so I deep dove into female sexual function. Remember, I'm the urologist. We make penises hard every day. You're welcome. I like how a woman said that and not a guy. So because of my knowledge in female sexual function, I'm like, sorry, Bellingham, but I can't change the world just seeing 20 people a day here. I got to get loud. So I started a podcast, I wrote a book, I did a TEDx, started knowing a lot about female sexual function. And people started to speak up. Also got very big on Instagram. And on Instagram, people said, but you know what happens to your sex life with menopause? I'm like, oh, moving on, right? And then the next person's like, yeah, but you know what happens to your sex life with menopause? I'm like, oh, that's a coincidence, that's two. Okay. Another one's like, yeah, but you know what happens to your sex life with menopause? And I'm like, shit. I don't know what happens to my sex life with menopause. And I'm staring down the barrel. Maybe I'll figure it out. So I did the same deep dive with menopause that I did with female sexual health. You guys, I have the 2 largest niches in the entire world. And what I learned is that hormones are incredibly useful for your sex life with menopause. But I also learned that not only does your sex life not have to decline, it can be your best sex life ever. And with me learning about hormones came all of the fear and misconceptions about hormones. So I started, why is everybody so afraid? What's this WHI study from 2002? Why does everybody think that a hormone that they make that goes through the roof with pregnancy, why do we think it's trying to kill them? And so I started to research all of that. It's the cultural fear that is no longer supported by the science. And the other thing that makes me a rock star advocate for female sex and hormones is I take care of the men every day. And it's a perspective that the average OB-GYN just doesn't have. Because when a midlife guy comes in and he says, I don't have a libido, I'm gaining weight in the middle, I'm super tired all the time, we don't look at him and say, have you tried acupuncture and more yoga? And we love acupuncture and yoga, but it's not a treatment for hypogonadism. My friend, Dr. Rubin, said, if men's testicles fell off at average age of 52, there would be a national vaccine. So in medical school, I remember sitting in a lecture hall similar to this, and I remember a professor saying, 50% of what you will learn here won't be true. The problem is, we don't know what 50% that is. And I think that's an amazing story with what has happened to estrogen and to women's health and the inequality in healthcare for all the genders. And that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about this topic. And once we get people talking, they're all pretty passionate about it too. And I agree with the documentary that hormones aren't everything. They're a lot. but hormones aren't everything. And part of this conversation is redefining what aging looks like. And it's quite possible that we've been taught that frailty is inevitable, and that's not true. So I want to do just a little thought experiment in take where you are right now and add 20 years to it. Where are you going to be? Who are you going to be with? What are you going to be doing? And I actually use this thought experiment in clinic because I see women, they're like, it's my 50th birthday, I'm here. Which is very fun and very cool. But I use that thought experiment because they're usually, if they're not having bad menopause symptoms, they're feeling pretty good. And they're trying to figure out, is hormones right for me? What should I do? And hormones, like a healthy lifestyle, like exercise, lifting weights, and eating well, it works best to prevent disease, frailty, fractures. It's preventative health. And I would argue in our current medical system, we're much better at treating you when you're already broken than working on keeping you healthy. And so the thought experiment I use is I say, what do you want to be doing when you're 72? And now you got to work back. I see in my clinic people age every day, and aging is inevitable, but some people do it well. And I like to take notes. There's two groups of people that I always ask their secrets in clinic. Those who've been married greater than 50 years, I always need to know their secret. And then the people who are living over 90, I always want to hear their secret. And the thing that we don't get taught is by the time a doctor diagnoses you with dementia, it's been going on in your brain for 20 years. By the time you get diagnosed with Parkinson's, over 90% of the cells in that part of your brain are gone. By the time you have a heart attack, that process has been going on for at least 20 years. And part of this conversation about menopause being a moment and so hot right now is really realizing that what we do now matters. Because once you get diagnosed with those things, we're not good at treating it. We're better than we've ever been. But the prevention part is missing. And when we think about ourselves 20 years down the road, now we know what she needs. And we can start acting as if we need to show up for her. What do you need to do, stop doing, or continue doing to be who you want, where you want, with what you want in 20 years? If men had a drug that if they took it between ages of 50 and 60, they lived on average 3 extra years, do you think they'd all be on it? Yes. And yes, they'd also be covered by insurance. That's right. You guys are awesome. Women have that drug. We have the studies on that. It's called estrogen. Decreases colon cancer risk by 30%, decreases heart disease by 50%. We're getting a little louder on it, but we do have a lot of data if you take it early, and what that means is before you're too much older, there's great data to say it probably decreases risk of dementia and all neurologic disorders by about 30%. If you're on hormone therapy, it decreases your risk of any fracture by 50%. In the Women's Health Initiative, actually, we did get good data from it besides completely destroying 2 generations of humans. But women who didn't even have a diagnosis of osteoporosis had a decreased risk of fracture on hormones. You don't even need the diagnosis to benefit. And there aren't many medications that are actually FDA approved to prevent diseases. That's actually a pretty rare moniker. Again, we are not very good at preventing diseases. We're much better, come to me when you're sick. But estrogen has an FDA approval for the prevention of osteoporosis. They don't have our body parts. They don't need to tell us what we're going through. That's our job. See, also, they don't have a clitoris. You have to tell them where that is, too. But you'll be glad you did. Yeah. So here's the challenge. We're going to put you guys back out in the real world after this. And the problem with the real world is it's going to tell you what aging is like. It's going to tell you how to age. It's going to tell you the 20 bajillion supplements and everything else you need to spend to make somebody else wealthy for you to age well. You're going to be bombarded with the status quo. And what Gen X, so the oldest Gen Xers are turning 60 in 2025. Yeah. And the unique thing about, so people are like, why is menopause having a moment right now? And it's like, Gen Xers are watching their parents age. And they're starting to think, is there a different way to do this? So understand, your challenge is when you go out into the real world, you now have your future self that you're accountable for. I'm giving that to you to take with, because you're going to go back into the status quo of this is just how it is. You said, I don't think it has to be this way. I think I can do this differently, and I'm going to take all my friends with me, and I'm going to find the doctors that support me, the therapists that support me, the friends that support me, because when I'm 78, I'm still going to be on this stage changing the world.